Hey everybody, welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Dave Riedel. My pronouns are he, him. I write and I talk about movies, and I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
My name is Evan Cree, and I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. My pronouns are he, him.
And my name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I, too, am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and I'm a member of Gallica, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics.
Indeed, you are.
Yes.
Trying to do it differently.
I know, but sometimes you run out. There's only so many ways to say it.
It's, like Mark Maron in his podcast, he always called people like different versions of what the fuck, but now he does the same three every time. I know how he feels. How can you say, yes, you are differently, each week? So tangents aside, this week, as always, we are talking about movies. But first, before we do that, I want to tell you what's going on over on the Patreon. But before I do that even, we have two new patrons that we would like to thank and welcome to the Spoiler Piece family, because we are a family here at Spoiler Piece. we have Daniel Jakes, and so thank you, Daniel, for joining. And we have a very special sponsor piece patron. That is a very elite tier, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. So elite. Welcome to Heather Sachs. Heather, it's great to have you here. Thank you for being a Spoiler Piece patron. And Daniel, thank you too. Over on the Patreon episode exclusive this week, oh yay, if you were a patron for as $5 a month, you would get bonus episodes each week. You would vote in polls. You would be able to shout from the rooftops that you do that. I don't know.
Be able to say, I am a spoiler peep.
That's right. I am a spoiler peep. But anyway, over on the Patreon segment movie thing, extra episode, we are talking about the 1973 Best Picture winner, The Sting, starring Robert Redford and Paul Newman and directed by George Roy Hill. We have a little theme going on, movies with a big anniversary. The Sting is 50 years old this year, and I suggested we watch that, and Evan and Megan agreed, and now they regret it. But anyway,
no.
I'm just kidding. It was a fun episode, as all the bonus episodes are. We always have a lot of fun, kind of stretching out, taking a little bit longer to talk about the movies. It's a lively conversation, and we hope you enjoy it too. And this week on the regular show, which is what you're listening to right now, we have two films. We have the French courtroom drama Saint-Omer, and we have the experimental horror movie Skinamarink, which is kind of fun to say fast like that. Skinamarink. But first, so we're going to talk about Saint-Omer first. This is, like I said, it's a French courtroom drama. It is directed by, I'm going to do these in my best I used to speak French pronunciation, Alice Diop. It stars Kaije Kagami and Guzlaji Malanda. And this is the summary from IMDb, which is very long, but it is one sentence. Follows Rama, a novelist who attends the trial of Laurence Colly at the Saint-Omer Criminal Court to use her story to write a modern-day adaptation of the ancient myth of Medea, but things don't go as expected. Interesting use of the word expected there. Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's it. And Saint-Omer is basically, it's a very long courtroom drama, but not courtroom drama in the sense that you think of courtroom dramas like A Few Good Men or an episode of Law and Order.
Right.
This is a very deliberately paced, the witness is talking from the witness stand, the judges and lawyers are talking to the witnesses, and then you have Rama, the main character, sitting in the gallery, looking very sad as the case goes on and on, because the case is about a woman who, for no reason that anybody can comprehend, walks down to the beach with her infant daughter, leaves her on the beach, and lets the tide take her out and drown her. And she admits to it and all of these things, and, she didn't go on the lam or anything like that. And basically, to me, it's this very sad... This is, what happens when you have a colonial power, such as France, that went and invaded a bunch of countries, but then let all the people that they used to lord over come to France to, be French citizens, but then they treated them like crap. So this is basically, an indictment of colonialism, I thought. But other than that, I don't really have too much to say about it. It looks good. I will say that. And the performances are very good. But this movie is also depressing is not the right word. I
heavy.
find this movie deeply sad or saddening. So I would like to hear what you two have to say, because I'll just, I think about children in peril and I just can't wait to talk about Skinamarink. I think about children in peril and I just start to get upset. So what do you all think?
I think this
Megan, go first.
I did. I started.
Yeah.
I think this is great. I agree. This is an excellent courtroom drama. There are not many films that can do such long takes with a monologue or with interrogation that necessarily hold your attention and captivate you. And this really does.
Mm-hmm.
In many ways, this reminded me of the film Get the Trial of Vivian Amsalam, which is an excellent, excellent courtroom drama. And yeah, I think the performances are quite good. There's a lot of, especially with Rama's performance, there's a lot going on that's silent. There's a lot going on just in her facial expressions because she's watching this trial unfold. And yeah, it's a very deliberate film. It's very particular. Elise Diop is a documentary filmmaker, and this is her first narrative film. And so it's very interesting watching. I always find it interesting to see a documentary filmmaker make a fictitious film. And although this is based on an actual murder case, a murder case that she was there in the courtroom and witnessed the testimony of the woman on trial for murdering her child. And so I find this a very fascinating film, and it's dealing with a lot of ideas about immigration and racism and sexism and colonialism, like you said, Dave. And yeah, and Valerie Complex at Deadline had a really fantastic review where she talks about how it's about two Black Senegalese women also connecting via trauma. And I think that that's really fascinating. I also think the usage of the Greek myth of Medea, very overtly woven throughout, is really fascinating. And because I'm a Greek mythology nerd, I always love that. And Medea's really interesting because she killed her kids, but she's kind of been reclaimed in feminist circles as rejecting patriarchy and rejecting, kind of the suppression of women via gender norms. And so it's really interesting to think about that Greek myth and think about how Rama is doing a retelling of it and teaching classes on it and how that plays out with this case. So yeah, I think this is a really, really fascinating and intriguing film.
Okay, Evan.
I agree with you.
Thank you for being more nuanced than I was, Megan, by the way.
You're welcome. I do what I can.
I agree with you, Megan, and Dave. This is it's a compelling movie. It is, it's heavy, it's heartbreaking. It's very deliberate. There are some really great performances at the center of it. It's got layers to it. I thought it was very compelling. And when you think of courtroom dramas, like Dave was saying earlier, you think of 12 Angry Men type, things are very fast paced, hard hitting, lots of things. And it's this movie is very deliberate. It's very emotional. And there's a lot of great acting between these two leads. A lot of stuff that they say with their face without saying anything.
Yeah.
Like when Lawrence is up on the stand, you see her face when other people are talking, and you can read so much into what is going on internally with her. And there's a moment where she, toward the end, finally locks eyes with Rama, and woof, it just hit me like a freight train. Emotionally, that they locked eyes and they said so much to each other while saying so little. And I like that the movie kind of cuts back and forth between different perspectives in the courtroom, and it's like if Laurence is giving testimony, we might be seeing Rama's perspective throughout the testimony, or if someone else is talking, like the Luke Dumontet, the dirtbag guy that Laurence was with, we're seeing her reactions to his testimony, And it's a very compelling movie. I think also there's a lot to say here about intergenerational trauma
Yes.
and how that kind of links to immigration and colonialism, because we see some flashbacks to Rama's childhood and her relationship with her mother, who seems like she kind of struggled with depression and just hardship, and seeing how she is pregnant now. And she is worried about how she's going to raise her child in this world and how she's going to be as a mother. And so that angle was also just extremely compelling, seeing her kind of go through a lot of that in her head. And I really liked how she connected with Laurence's mother, and they sit together and talk and kind of share a connection and some moments. So yeah, I thought this was just really good, just really well done. I love that I don't know if this is how the courtroom it actually is in France. I was kind of surprised by the amount of editorializing that the attorneys do in this, where sometimes they're not even really asking a question. They're just kind of talking at somebody.
Yeah.
But I like that the people in this courtroom aren't afraid to hold, Luc Dumontet's feet to the fire and say, you know what, dude, you were a dick in this. Like, you're saying you're so concerned about this child. The cops called you. You didn't even want to say this was your child. You hid this relationship. You hid her. Like, you did all these shitty things. So yeah, we'll hear you, try and say your piece, but you're not going to sit there and just spout awful shit and not, not have your feet held to the fire.
Yeah. I know that we don't like it when I talk about the French in broad strokes.
Nope.
But some of the things about this movie are so French, which makes sense, of course, because it's a French production. But one of the things that I think that people don't, or Americans probably don't think about very much when they think about France is because, why would you, is just how racist white French people are about former colonies of France, particular African colonies. I mean, and it comes out in the movie the way that I think it's the prosecutor is talking to Laurence. And then even in her defense attorney's summary, she's talking about like the madness of the sorcery and this, that, or the other. And it's like, well, sorcery to someone from Senegal means something different to someone from France. I mean, and there is this big cultural gap that I think that Laurence's attorney is using to try to, like she says, make sure that Laurence gets some mental health care rather than just be sent to prison, which, fine. But it still comes across as, oh, this peon, this person who is smaller than we, the noble Gallic, That's why I do think that it's interesting that the judge in particular treats Luc Dumontet like he's a total asshole, like he is. I mean, and that is also like a French trope, the older man with the younger, girlfriend hidden away while he still has his like regular family life. And having known a few people who did that, I can say that from my experience, it rang true. But yeah, it's very, the kind of clash of cultures, and also the clash of the generational clash, because Luc is 35 years older than Laurence or something like that. So there's that, and then there's this idea in the courtroom that he's sort of operating under old school rules, and the judge is like, I'm about 15 years younger than you, and this is not cool like you think it used to be, pal. But then there's also just like the sexism and misogyny that's hurled at Laurence too, that is so difficult to watch. And to watch her face, Ghazlaji Malanda, who plays Laurence, just to watch, like Evan was saying, the acting on her face, you can just see her holding back. Like it felt to me like she was holding back, from screaming, "You fucking assholes!"
Yeah,
you don't know how fucking hard I've had it,
And she looks so dejected at points too. It's palpable.
Well, and also the thing that's amazing is you've got the two, Rama I mean, it's not like she has a deep relationship, but she has a relationship with Laurence's mother. And then it's contrasted at the end to her mother now. And the last 2 words in the movie are spoken by Rama's mother. They're not spoken by like the main character, you know? And I think what she says, so tired, or I'm tired. I think that's what she says. And it's just like, you know, this isn't your movie, but I guess that's kind of the point, you know? So
that's precisely the point. That it just keeps the cycle of being tired, of being oppressed over and over for Black women. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, there's a lot to this. And hearing you two talk about it made me kind of think about it a little more, because, you know, when I'm watching it, all I'm thinking is, oh, Laurence, oh, her baby. That's what I'm thinking.
But it is really challenging to the audience. And it's not just of the characters in the film.
It is.
But like, can you relate to a woman, or can you have any sympathy for a woman who murdered her child? You know, It is asking a lot.
I mean, if you can have, you know, sympathy for orphan first kill, I don't know why you couldn't have sympathy for Laurence, but go back and listen to whatever episode that is, everybody. But one of the things that I think was a really risky choice that I think paid off was to have so much, as both of you have said, so much unspoken, but just you can see, just looking in characters' eyes or their faces or what their eyebrows do or what the corner of their mouth does. You can just see like everything they're thinking. And that's the sign of A, hiring really good actors, and, you know, B, directing them really well, which is hard to do, which I think that people don't really realize. But
I think it's also, you're absolutely right. I think it's also trusting your audience too. And which is something, unfortunately, not enough filmmakers do, especially in the US. And so, you know, it's really great to see. Something else that I've been thinking about as we're talking, like thinking about the whole notion of women and myths. And these women are from these 2 women are from Senegal. And I kept thinking about like the fact that she drowns her child, which obviously is horrific. But thinking about the use of water, there's a water spirit in many African cultures, Mami Wata. And Mami Wata comes up in Nikiatu Jusu's horror film Nanny, which is also about a Senegalese immigrant. And there's a lot of water imagery. And it also comes up in Mati Diop's film Atlantics, and which is also in Senegal and about water and ghosts. And so it's interesting to see these films where the water imagery just keeps coming up over and over and over again, as it would, of course, because it's so important to their culture. But that's like another layer to this film as well. But there's just, there are so many layers to this. I think it's a really fascinating film because it's one that could be seen as simple on the surface. Like, oh, it's just, you know,
oh, for sure.
You know, it's a professor watching a court case, but it's so complex with what's going on. There's so many things.
Mm-hmm. Megan, you're also reminding me Saloom, another movie that involves water and spirits.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of those in the past few years, or, you know, comparatively.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I had more to. Oh, Megan, you were right. I had more to say about it than I thought I did.
I knew once we got going.
Yeah, well, I think these kinds of movies are hard for me, like I said, because of, you know, the dead child angle. But I guess that's actually it. You know, it's just more like, for me, and like I said, just wait till we get to Skinamarink. I don't really want to think. That's kind of when like dead child. I don't want to think about this. So, but one of the things I noticed early on, and this goes with what you said, Megan, trusting your audience, is so much of this movie is just Laurence on the stand answering questions. And at first, when I was watching, I'm like, this is the fucking movie. And then by the end of it, you're like, oh, this is the fucking movie. It's like one of those kinds of things, you know? Because it just works so well, especially the choice to leave those long gaps between when Laurence finishes her answer and before the judge asks another question, but hanging on Laurence and watching her face just be like, Jesus Christ, I can't. I've answered all these questions before. Can I, like,
Mhm.
Nothing I said to you made sense earlier, and it's not going to make sense now. So can we end this farce? But anyway,
Totally.
there. I said a lot.
You did, but it was all good stuff. I also think it's interesting, and I think it's something worth noting that this is the first. So this film is on the Oscar shortlist for Best International Film, and this is the first time that France has put up a film directed by a Black woman, and I think that that's really monumental. I mean, it's also kind of sad, but it's also monumental, and I think this is a really fantastic film that deserves to be nominated.
It's very good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a film I saw a while ago, and it's one that has crept up on me more and more. Like, it's one that I've kind of mulled over and sat with it. And so I love that you guys had such a great reaction immediately, because I think it is a film that that the more you marinate,
It's a grower.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a shower. Yeah. But I watched it earlier today, and when I was done, I was like, I don't want to think about this. But as we got into it, I'm thinking about it more. Because, like I said, it made me sad, the whole thing. Not just like the child aspect, but just like...
No, there's so many sad things happening in it.
Yeah, there's so much sadness in this movie. And the other thing that I don't know if we mentioned this or not, but Rama is in a similar-ish relationship that Laurence was in the sense that she is, I can't remember if they're married or if they're just, together. But Rama's partner is a white dude, not nearly as old as Luc de Monte, and seemingly much, much nicer.
Yeah, he seems supportive.
Seems very supportive. Although at the beginning, when he's trying to like nuzzle her when she wakes up in bed, she's like, get the fuck off me.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, dude, it's the middle of the night. Come on. She's having a nightmare. But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting parallel too, which is not something that's really brought up, but it's just something that you notice,
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's a great point that you mention. And there's in the New Yorker, in their review of the film, that the critic raises an interesting point. Like, do you even need Rama in the film? And I'm not saying that they say you don't need Rama, but it's an interesting question to just even pose. But yeah, I would say you absolutely need Rama. She's critical, because seeing those parallels and seeing that Laurence is not just an isolated incident, even if her crime is, but just the emotions she's experiencing, the circumstances and situations, are very much a product of institutional oppression.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like, we see it a lot on social media and stuff. When something bad happens, someone will say, it was particularly if it happens to a specific group of people, like, check on your friends today and see how they're doing. I feel like it's a very similar sentiment. Like, Rama is very important to be there because, like, individually this is horrible for Laurence to be going through, but like it cuts that much deeper knowing other Senegalese people are watching this trial and probably feeling the trauma of it and relating to it, and it's just there's all these other people walking around carrying this now, and so I think she's essential. Yeah, I agree with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I mean, what is going to do? Just going to be holding on an empty like row in the courtroom. I mean, think about how much rewriting that would take. Anyway, well, do we have any other thoughts? Any parting thoughts on Saint-Omer before we move on to our next Child in Peril movie?
Just that it's an excellent movie with excellent performances and direction.
Yep, that's true. Okay. So moving on. And when I say child in peril, the child is done being in peril in Saint-Omer. But in this movie, Skinamarink, written and directed by Kyle Edward Ball, this is a very different kind of horror movie that I was forced to watch.
You're welcome.
I was forced to watch. Yeah. So anyway, here's the summary. Two children wake up in the middle of the night to find their father is missing and all the windows and doors in their home have vanished. Yep.
That is correct.
To say that this movie is a very different kind of horror movie is an understatement. I mean, this movie is This movie is stylized to within an inch of its, if it were shot on film, within its celluloid life. I mean, this is so highly stylized, and when I say it's a horror movie, it's probably not the kind of horror movie you're thinking of, in the sense of creatures jumping out, and this is a movie about fear and dread, basically, but done in such. The camera work in this movie is really unlike anything I've ever seen in what you could call a narrative film, which is. These aren't even points of view shots of what the children would see. Some of them are, but a lot of the shots in this movie are static. A lot of them are like of the ceiling or the top of a door,
or grainy, or you can't really see what's going on.
They're all grainy.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, they really grained this up. It's amazing to me that this was shot on I can't remember which camera it is, but it's like an $8,000 Sony camera that takes really crystal clear images. And then they just crapped it up so it looks like, VHS from the 80s. And basically what happens is like it says, you've got these two little kids, Kevin and Kaylee. Is that her name?
Yes.
She's 6 and he's 4. And there's a brief period in the beginning of the movie when it's very clear that dad is home, and then everybody goes to bed. And then one of the kids wakes up screaming, and then they go to look for dad, and dad's not there, and all the windows and the doors are gone. And sometimes the toilet's there and sometimes it isn't, which is an interesting choice. And then mom's still there, but it's not really mom.
Mm-hmm.
And that was super creepy. And the other thing about this is the things that you think are going to be creepy aren't the creepy things. Like the things in this movie that are creepy are just holding on an open door, for 45 seconds. Or there are 2 times when Kevin tells Kaylee to look under the bed in her parents' rooms. And I thought that there was going to be some horrible monster, and there's nothing. Nope. There's nothing.
Nope. Which is almost worse.
Which is almost worse. And in that same scene, that's the one where you realize mom is still home, but mom isn't mom. You never see mom's face, but something's wrong with mom. And she says to, I think it's Kaylee, she's like, you need to go back downstairs, or you need to go to sleep. That's a recurring theme. There turns out there is some otherworldly presence in the house. Mm-hmm. And it is always telling the children they need to go to sleep. I have a different take on what this whole thing is, I think. Probably some people have to have thought this already. I can't be the only fucking one. But anyway, I watched this. I started to watch this 2 nights ago at night. And I got about 5 minutes in and I was like, nope. And so I watched it yesterday at 10 o'clock in the morning with all the windows, all the curtains open, bright room. And then I was like, well, now I actually can't see anything. So I had to close the curtains, but it was daytime. And another thing that's interesting about this movie is the children speak, but you never see them speak on camera. They're always obscured or something like that. They always whisper, and a lot of it's subtitled because they're so quiet you can't hear exactly what they're saying. Oh boy, this movie I found truly terrifying, and we can get into more of that. But does either of you want to go ahead and run around the Skinamarink with this?
Run around the Skinamarink.
Because Skinamarink is actually a song, which I didn't know. Megan told me.
I sure did, yeah. Skinamarink dinky dink, Skinamarink doo.
And it's not a scary song, by the way.
No, it's not.
No, it is not a scary song. I was disappointed there was no connection between that song and this movie.
I actually like that there's no connection. I prefer that. It doesn't need that.
I think the forgot. I should mention.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I should mention really quickly the sound design. A lot of this movie's strengths or weaknesses, I guess, depending on your point of view, are its sound design. Mm-hmm. So, which is full of. Now, I didn't find it creepy because I've watched these kinds of cartoons my whole life. I don't like them because they're old-timey 1930s cartoons. But it's like the ones where all the characters, there's like a cat trying to chase a worm or whatever. It's like that kind of, Al Fleischer, Popeye kind of stuff that animation style, but with all the like the jaunty, orchestral music. And it's played for, it's increasingly played for dread. Although that's the one part that I didn't really think was all that dreadful, except the couple of times it slowed down inexplicably.
And repeats.
Yeah.
When that one scene repeats like 10 times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought this was great. But this is Dave, when you said it's a very different horror film, I feel like that is an understatement, because this is definitely a film that requires your patience. It requires the audience to be very patient, because it is a very, very slow burn. And
But does it burn?
Yeah. And
boy.
It's incredibly I
me.
found this incredibly disturbing and eerie and very tense in moments. And the grainy footage is really interesting, because at first it does look like there's security cameras in the house, but that's not what's happening. And then you're right, you do see POV shots from the kids, but that's also not what's happening, because you see other shots that are like of the ceiling or of, a spot on the floor, and you see the kids' feet. But I think what's interesting is that the graininess of the footage and the sounds, like especially the fact that most of the sounds being spoken of the kids, they're in whispers, and there's a lot of subtitles. And so everything like kind of requires you to be vigilant and really pay attention and be focused. But it also, especially with the grainy camera work, it really adds to this idea and this feeling of disorientation, like what is happening, what's going on. And that disorientation is what's so tense. And you're right. I love that you talk about the under the bed scene, because that is exactly where you would expect, a jump scare or expect something gross. And nope, that doesn't happen at all. But there are other parts but this movie also catches you off guard. Like you're going along, and then all of a sudden the presence that's in the house says to Kevin, the little boy, stick a knife in your eye. And I'm like, what? Like, what the fuck? And
Kevin does not, by the way.
I thought he did.
Well, you see him once after that where he's sitting on the floor and he turns it's the one time like you actually see an entire child, and there's no like blood on him or anything like that. And he turns his head and his right eye anyway is completely fine. Right. I assumed
there was blood on a cabinet in one part.
There's blood all
for
over.
Sure. I didn't think that was his necessarily. I thought that might have been Mom's.
Oh, interesting.
Or Kaylee's.
That's interesting. I want to talk about more of that in a minute, but I also want to say, like, after that scene, the 911 call is harrowing. So sad, so awful.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that's so hard about this is Kevin, after Kaylee, I guess Kaylee doesn't really disappear. Her mouth and her eyes get taken away.
Oh my God, which is horrifying.
Yeah. And that is one of the jump scares.
Yes.
There are like maybe 3 jump scares in this movie, and that's one of them. And it made me jump. I'll tell you that.
Ditto.
And then the presence in the house says later, I had to take her mouth because she didn't do as she was told. And it's like, oh my God.
It's so abusively controlling and gross. Oh my God. It's horrifying.
Evan, it sounds like this movie may not have been your cup of tea, perhaps, maybe. And
I fucking hated this movie.
Oh.
Like, I absolutely hated this movie. It was, to me, felt like an hour and 40-minute cocktail napkin that someone was trying to pass off as a movie. It demanded my attention, but I feel like didn't do anything to earn it. It did not find it scary at all. I found it utterly irritating. The graininess, the shots of everything else but things, the parts where I'm like, I mean, the fact that you guys weren't even sure whether one of the kids actually stabbed himself in the eye, to me, is troubling. Because there are parts where I'm like, I can't see what's going on. I can't really hear anything that's going on. I see a few subtitles here or there. And I just was not about this movie. I found it just so utterly irritating and annoying to like subject somebody to a bunch of shots where you can't tell what's going on. You can barely hear what's going on.
I
And
feel like that feels like most nightmares,
And that's
you know?
just slow.
and that's the intention. It is nightmares. Yeah.
But I mean, I can understand if it doesn't work for you.
Right.
I understand.
I just want to say too,
Um,
though, I don't think Dave and I are not sure what happened. I think we just have different takes on what happened.
Right. Yeah.
Because I'm very positive he stabbed himself in the eye, whereas Dave's very positive he didn't.
I don't think he. Yeah, I don't think he did. I'm sure that blood came from some
It sure
person
did.
in the house, and it doesn't seem like they have any pets. So
Thank God.
probably because animals would be too hard to control on a set like that. I just felt like this is what it feels like, especially when you're a child and you're just like when you lose your parent in the grocery store or whatever. Like that's what this movie is, you know, except more actual demon. I mean, the end when, you know, I was reading somewhere that it's like the ending is like the last 15 minutes of this movie are like the last 10 seconds of the Blair Witch Project when you find Mike in the corner, except it's 15 minutes. And I don't think that. I think it's even scarier because, you know, the Blair Witch Project, Heather comes down the stairs. She sees Mike in the corner. She gets banged over the head. She drops the camera. The movie's over. This one, Kevin is walking up to the demon for 3 minutes. And all you see is like, it looks like a lollipop head and you can barely see like its eyes and its mouth, but they're not moving, but it's still speaking. And all it's doing is telling him to go to sleep. And Kevin keeps saying, "What's your name?" And then he says it like 3 or 4 times. And then the movie's over. And it's like, all right, is Kevin dead? Was this all Kevin's nightmare and he just woke up? Like what happened? I tend to think, or I would like to think, at the beginning, you hear dad on the phone, I think talking to mom, saying, well, Kevin fell down the stairs and he banged his head.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that Kevin has a concussion and this is all in his head. That's what I would like to think.
Yeah. Seems viable to me.
Definitely.
You know, because the other reality, and this is just, I know that I talk about this all the time and you two are probably tired of it. And,
not at all.
you know, our listeners are probably tired of it, but just, I put myself, especially my younger kid who is 4, I think about what he would be going through if something like, not this situation, but something just completely inexplicable to him were happening. And it just breaks my heart, you know, in that very sappy parental way that you hear everybody, people, you used to hear them say like, kids and the fuck. And then they have kids and they're like, kids, you know, it's like that. So that's where I come down.
For what it's worth, I love hearing you talk about your kids. I love hearing that. So.
Yeah, well, you're only hearing about the good stuff. You're not hearing about what I'm like, would you please just shut off the bathroom light when you leave the bathroom, you know? It's like, please stop dropping the toilet seat. But I got a good explanation for why they dropped the toilet seat. One of the toilets here has like the slow close where you just like bump it and then it closes by itself. And the other 2 don't.
Oh, interesting.
Because the one that closes slowly was replaced because it was broken when we moved in. And I was like, the fucking toilet's broken. And they're like, that's weird. And then it was just the seat. And so they couldn't find just a regular toilet seat. They only, at the Lowe's my landlord went to, they only had the soft close ones. So that's why they have it. So anyway, to make a long story even longer, I told my older child who is 7, why don't you treat all the toilet seats like they're the slow one? And you just like lower it really slow because he can't remember. He says, you know, which ones are which. Like, so why don't you just close all of them like they're slow. And if it starts to move slowly on its own, then you can let it go and whatever. And then the other ones you just put down quietly by yourself. And it was like I was, you know, I had explained to him what E = MC squared meant. And he was like, the floodgates have opened to, you know, mystery and imagination. And he's just like, oh yeah, I could do that. It's like, oh my God. and then you think to yourself, this is how children think. They don't know things, you know? So that's what I think of when I think of, you know, poor Kevin in this movie. And you know how at the beginning when they can't find their parents, the first thing they do is get some juice because they're thirsty, you know? Which is, I guarantee you, if you're in my house and Ted is gone, my 4-year-old is gone for 30 seconds, you know that he's in the refrigerator being like, I need the milk. I need my lemonade. You know that's what Ted's doing. He won't eat any food, but he will drink milk and drink lemonade. So,
well, there we go.
Yeah. So that's my long-winded whatever. That's why this movie, I think, just makes my fucking skin crawl in a very effective, I approve of your filmmaking sort of way. Kind of the opposite reaction to Evan.
Yeah, it is literally the inverse.
But yeah, it's kind of like there's the scene where you see like the Legos at the beginning of the movie, and some of them get thrown across the room, and you're like, who the fuck threw those Legos?
Right.
And I just, and I thought to myself, this is like when Danny is playing in The Shining and the ball rolls up next to him,
Yes.
It's like, yikes.
Mm-hmm.
Except done in a very experimental, non-Stanley Kubrick sort of way.
Yeah. Circling back to what you were saying about how you said some people are reminded of the ending of Blair Witch Project. I think it's funny. I mean, I didn't get that, although I guess I can see because it's a found footage film, although this is not found footage, but it feels in certain ways like found footage. But
Right.
Kyle Edward Ball, in an interview with Fangoria, talked about his inspirations, and he was inspired by experimental filmmakers like Maya Deren. He's inspired also by Chantal Ackerman, and
This screams Stan Brakhage to me in some places.
he was inspired by Black Christmas, like a lot of the panning shots, but the final shots, like when it pans out, like when you see the upside down of the Legos kind of piled. He said that that was from the ending of Tarkovsky's Solaris, which I thought was really interesting. So so I think it's interesting.
That is interesting.
That he's pulling from so many different sources, but yeah.
See, I don't get the Solaris. I mean, I've seen Solaris. I don't necessarily connect those groups of images, but maybe the way the camera is panning out and it turns out that they're on an island in the middle of some alien ocean in the end of Solaris. Spoiler. So
this is a spoiler piece.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the I also got like Twin Peaks vibes from this too. Just like with weird unexplained shit.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he didn't say, at least in the interview I read, he didn't say which of David Lynch's work. So it's very possible it was Twin Peaks, as well as maybe other, flourishes of David Lynch's as well.
I mean, there's definitely influences like all over this that I think do pull together a cohesive piece on its own to two of three of us.
Yes, definitely two of us. Yeah, but it's interesting that we're talking about that Dave, you were talking about nightmares, and because apparently that's how this film started. Was he posted on I don't know if it was on social media or somewhere, but he wanted people to share like what their nightmares were. And
right. And he made short films about their nightmares.
Yep, exactly. So that was kind of the inception of this. And this really does feel like a nightmare. And like kind of like when you're in a dream and you're walking, but it's almost like you're walking through mud and you're not really getting anywhere. And you're
walking through mud. You can't reach the destination you need to reach, and you can't speak. And then you wake up and you're going, and you're like, oh, I was trying to talk in my sleep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's really fascinating to capture those very intangible emotions and images. But I understand.
Evan, what else did
I know
you
I was going to say, but I also understand why it didn't work for you, Evan.
That's the thing, is like I feel like I have so little to say more. So I like what I said that I didn't like pretty much summarizes exactly everything that wasn't working the entire time.
Yeah, I definitely like I feel like if you don't get on the board with this movie and very quickly, unlike the movie itself, which is like, let's take our time. That's the other thing about nightmares is they feel like they take forever. Mm-hmm. And then you wake up and it's like been 7 minutes since you last looked at your watch. And you're like, oh, that's weird.
Yep. Time has no meaning.
I feel like this is definitely for a subgroup of horror fans. I don't know what that subgroup is, considering I've never really seen a movie like this. But I think the best atmosphere in which to see this would be in a big theater, an old-timey one, kind of like the Coolidge Corner Theater or something like that, with an audience that was on board, you know, because it's like when I saw the Blair Witch Project, I saw it at a sneak like 2 months before it came out and no one knew what it was. And everyone was fucking petrified in that goddamn movie theater. Even when the 6 train rolled underneath the Angelica, no one gave a shit because they were too scared about what was going on screen.
Yeah, I could see that working for people seeing this in the theater if you're on board with it.
Yeah.
If you're like me, you'll be happy that you watch this at home because I felt like the most captive audience. Like I felt like this movie was holding me at gunpoint.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you say that. I feel like I feel like that's kind of the point. You are like in a nightmare, you are a captive. Like how many people can actually lucid dream and dream themselves out of a dream, you know? Every once in a while I'll have a dream where like, you know what, I'm dreaming. This is bullshit. And then I wake up and I go get a glass of water. But
yeah, it was like I can wake myself up. I can do that now. I didn't used to be able to, but now I can.
Yeah. I can do it sometimes. Like I have the strangest fucking dreams. I'm sure everybody's dreams are strange,
Yeah,
but
probably.
yeah. But I forgot. I lost my train of thought.
Seeing it in a theater, captive audience.
Oh, seeing it in a theater. Yeah, captive audience. I feel like that's part of this movie's what worked for me is that it like I didn't really want to watch what was going on in the because I just like I didn't want to look under the bed and things like that. And also, isn't Mom sitting at first? Isn't she sitting on that side of the bed when Kaylee goes to look under the bed, and then she does it a second time, but then Mom's sitting on the other side of the bed? I think that's what happens.
Dad was sitting on one side, and then he disappeared. Then Mom appeared, and she was on the other side of the bed facing the other way.
That's it. You're right.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I'm going to be sleeping with my TV on tonight, I tell you.
So see, I think that's interesting thinking about where you see this film, because I do agree that this would be impactful seeing it in a theater, but I also kind of love that I saw this in my room with the lights off, just my laptop.
Oh, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
I did, and I had my headphones in too. And very early on, there's like this loud noise, and I'm like, nope. And I had to like rip my headphones out and just like listen to it come through the speakers because it was too intense. It was too much.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things I always think about when I'm watching spoiler piece movies is like, in my new home, the boys' bedrooms are on are on a different floor from mine. My bedroom is on the top floor and they're on the bottom floor. And so I watch movies on the bottom floor because I don't really watch TV in my room, although I have one. But I always worry about like, they're not really like wake up and come get dad kind of kids. But every once in a while they do. And I always worry when I'm watching a movie like this, my older kid, who I'm sure if he took one look at this movie would be fucking horrified, like, why are those kids talking so quiet? Why are they looking at it? It'd be one of those kinds of things. And he's not that kind of kid. He's never expressed any, like, he's never said, oh, I had a bad dream. Oh, there's something under bed. There's been none of that with him. But I feel like if he saw 12 seconds of this movie, I would spend the next 11 years before he went to college, assuming he goes to college, being like, no, Henry, there's nothing in your closet. There's nothing. The thing you hear in the closet is the goddamn HVAC unit. Okay. Jesus, So that was a tangent. Apologies, but in other words, Evan, I'm trying to make you like this movie. No, I'm just kidding. No, that being said, I don't know if I'm ever going to watch this again, No. Because to your point, Evan, you are correct that, I feel like this works for you once, but then once you know the tricks of the trade, it's kind of like, well, now I can't sit through this journey because this time I know what's coming and it's going to be arduous.
I don't know. So, now I kind of want to I was thinking like, no, I never want to see this again, but I don't know. I might want to rewatch it and at least the beginning and see if I notice anything differently. But for me anyway, there are plenty of movies that I like and love that one time was enough and I don't ever want to see again, but they were really impactful or really impressive feats of filmmaking. So for me, the fact that I don't really want to watch this again, but may just to observe some things, for me is not a knock against this.
It's more of a fact-finding mission.
Yes.
You're
Yeah.
like, I need to I
Kinda.
need you like there with your notepad. Like, I gotta confirm some things here.
Exactly.
Well,
exactly.
Verify some hypotheses.
Yes.
I was reading an interview with the director, and he said that, a lot of people have said, do you ever, until the last shot of the movie, do you ever see the presence in the house? And he's like, no, you don't. He said, but there is one shot in the movie where there is a person standing in the shadows, and we're not going to tell you which one it is. He's like, but once you see it, you'll never unsee
Oh my God,
it.
I'm rewatching
He's like,
this movie.
Yeah. And I was just like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
I do. You know what's funny?
You know?
It's so funny that you say that because I was looking throughout. I was like, is there a person standing in the shadows? I was looking.
I kept looking at it, looking for it too, because I read that interview before I saw the movie, and then I would think I saw something, and I would wind it back a little bit. I'm like,
too.
No, I don't see anything there.
Me too. And I hadn't read that interview. Yeah, the interview I read with him doesn't talk about that, but I also read it after I saw the film. But now I want to rewatch it. Also, something really fascinating that I just want to point out. This is his childhood home that he grew up in.
Right.
And the toys are his toys that his mom kept. Like, that's so weird, but awesome.
Oh, dude, when you see like the toy phone's eyes peeking out of the dark.
Oh my God.
And everybody I know had that phone, including me.
Me too.
I about keeled over dead when I saw it, because I knew I hadn't seen that in like 40 years, and I knew exactly what it was. Yep. And I was like, please put the fucking light on it so I can confirm what it is. And then it was what it was. And then it rang on its own.
Oh my God.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
I guess Evan wasn't a scaredy cat when he was a kid. I guess that's the short version.
No, I was a scaredy cat. That phone was very creepy. And I feel like that was probably the one time I was legitimately creeped out in the movie, is when that thing made an appearance. It was like, oh,
yeah.
Those bulging eyes.
Yeah,
did
those
it roll into the
eyes
room? Did it roll into the room on its own, or did Kevin just find it? He just found it, right?
I think he just found it, but now I have to go back and rewatch.
I think he just found it. Yeah, I remember seeing the eye, and then I remember seeing the eyes, and then I remember seeing like the whole thing revealed, and I'm like, yeah, that thing is fucking creepy. It's always been creepy. Yep, creepy.
Yeah. So speaking about the eye, before I just want to say before we wrap up, my thought is that I think Kevin hurt himself, but then I think the presence healed him, because there's one point where he says, how did you do that? And the presence says, I can do anything I want.
Oh, that's right.
So that's my hypothesis. And it may be very wrong. I don't know. But yeah. Because later we see like blood repeatedly splattering, but then disappearing. So I don't know.
But he took away the toilet from him, and they had to use a fucking bucket. And one of them even one of them says, gross. So
that's torture, taking away the toilet.
Yeah. Oh, good Lord. I remember when I was, because, the doors disappear, the windows disappear. I was like, the toilet disappears? Right? Oh, boy. This demon ain't pulling no punches. Mm-mm. This demon's like, hee, fuck you. So
I know. This demon's very controlling. It's awful.
Yeah. Oh, God. So, on that note, any other final thoughts on Skinamarink?
I would just add on Shauna's behalf that she said this movie was an ADD person's nightmare, between not being able to see a lot and not being able to hear a lot without full subtitles for what's going on.
I do have to say that sometimes, just like a nightmare, when you can't see exactly what's going on, it was frustrating. But then it was terrifying, this shot with Kevin walking up the stairs using the flashlight. And when the demon or presence or whatever it was like, come upstairs. And then, you kind of get the feeling that Kevin remembers, he said that the presence said he took away Kaylee's mouth because she wouldn't do as she was told. And so he's like, yep, I'll come up the stairs.
Yeah, right. But then that's the thing. He keeps asking the demon presence, whatever, their name. And then I'm like, oh my God, he's not going to sleep. He's asking the name. Oh my God, he's going to do something terrible.
Yeah. But that's how it ends. So
exactly.
This is what I think. I think Kevin wakes up then, and his dad's going to be like, dude, how's your head? We're here at the hospital. You needed some stitches. And he's going to be like, oh my God, I'm 4. I can't explain. So,
yours is a very nice interpretation, Dave. I like yours. Mine.
I have to.
Yeah, mine is much more morbid and terrible.
Megan's sounds like a weird, never-ending story. Just like, say my name, Bastion, but it's the demon.
Yeah, mine is very much like the original ending of The Descent.
Oh, right.
Very
right.
grim, very depressing.
I have now seen both of those endings, and it must be weird if you saw that movie in England and the movie ends with what's her name in the cave about to be eaten by the monsters. And then 3 years later, they're like, The Descent 2. And she's alive.
I know,
And you're like,
it's
what the
like,
fuck
what?
happened? And you don't know there was an American version where she survives.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay. Any more final thoughts on Skinamarink? Well, then we've done it. We've done it. We've gotten to the end of another episode of Spoiler Piece Theater.
Yeah.
Wow. So I need to go and turn on all the lights and make some hot chocolate. These movies are out today, Friday the 13th. If you're listening to this episode on the day it comes out, I don't remember where they are. Oh, well, Skinamarink's on Shudder and Saint Omer is around.
No, Skinamarink's not on Shudder yet.
Oh, it's not on Shudder yet?
It will
Right.
be.
Oh, is it like in limited theaters this week and then it's on Shudder?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I would like to thank, and you both would like to thank, I'm sure, our wonderful editor, Otto Clamor. Otto, thank you for the good edit last week when one of my kids interrupted the podcast. That was very awesome. You can find Spoiler Piece Theater anywhere you can get podcasts. If you want to find us online, our website is spoilerpiece.com. If you want to find us on social media, we're Spoiler Piece Theater at Facebook. And we're at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. If you'd like to email us your thoughts on Skinamarink, or anything for that matter, spoilerpiece@gmail.com is the email, or you can give us a call
At 862-21-PEACE.
Leave us a voicemail. Don't do it with a creepy voice, because that'll just freak me out. And let us know what you think of the movies this week or anything else that we've done on the show. That would be a joy. We'd like to hear your voicemails.
Yeah, we'd love to get a call. That's not a wrong number from an 862 area code.
Oh, there was a wrong
good
number?
point.
Oh, boy.
It's like, Ernie DwinkleFat, is this you? Anyway, if you like the show, please rate and review us by going to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece, or you can rate us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if you really like the show, please consider joining our Patreon. Remember, this week we talked about the 1973 George Roy Hill film, The Sting, with Paul Newman and Robert Redford. We had a lot of fun talking about that. And once more, I would like to welcome our new patrons, Daniel Jakes and Heather Sachs. Thank you, Thank you for being new members of the Spoiler Piece family. Woo!
Yeah, woo, woo.
I can't promise that I'm going to get anything into your out for your birthday this year, but I'll give it a shot. I don't know why I said that. I don't send anything to anybody for birthdays, not even my kids. So,
What is happening?
I'm the world's worst father. I'm just kidding. Anyway, that's that. My name is Dave Riedel. I write and I talk about movies. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. If you would like to follow me on the social medias, I am at Dave Sees Movies on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd.
And my name is Evan Crean. I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
And my name is Megan Kearns. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I, too, am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and I'm also a member of Gallica. You can follow me on Twitter at OpinionSWorld or on Instagram and Letterboxd at TheOpinionS.
And we'll see you next week with maybe some more scary movies or, hopefully movies that don't scare the crap out of me. Anyway, thank you everyone for joining us. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.